You found the Backup Wrap-Up, your go-to podcast for all things backup, recovery, and cyber recovery. In this episode, we answer a question that gets searched tens of thousands of times every month. What is ransomware? Honestly, if you think you know the answer, the game has probably changed. Today's attacks always or almost always include what we call a double extortion attack, where they threaten to publish your dirty laundry if you don't pay up. Imagine the worst email anyone at your group has ever written on the evening news. We'll break down both types of attacks, talk about why literally everyone is a target, and discuss why the odds of you getting hit are basically 100%. Plus, I talk about my new book that I wrote with Dr. Mike Saylor, and I hope you enjoy it. By the way, if you don't know who I am, I'm W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup, and I've been passionate about backup and recovery for over 30 years, ever since I had to tell my boss that there were no backups of the database that we just lost. I don't want that to happen to you. That's why I do this. On this podcast, we turn unappreciated admins into cyber recovery heroes. This is the Backup Wrap-Up. Hi folks, wanted to mention my new book, Learning Ransomware Response and Recovery, which is now available for pre-order at Amazon.com. I wrote it with my co-author, Dr. Mike Saylor, who's a blue team cyber defense expert. He really knows his stuff. There are dozens of books to tell you how not to get ransomware. Our book starts with the assumption you're probably going to get ransomware. So we tell you how to respond to it and how to recover from it. It's unlike anything else out there. We tell you what you need to do now to be able to respond when it happens. We covered defenses to reduce the blast radius, how to protect your backup system, incident response procedures, negotiation strategies, backup recovery techniques, and how to prevent it from happening again. The tech reviewers gave it overwhelmingly positive feedback, so I think it's going to be a big seller. Pre-order it now. Search for Learning Ransomware Response and Recovery, or just look for my name, W. Curtis Preston. Hope you like it. Welcome to the Backup Wrap-Up. I'm your host, W. Curtis Preston, a.k.a. Mr. Backup, and I have with me Prasanna, the subnet mask, Malaiyandi. How's it going, Prasanna?
Yeah, I probably deserve that. I fell down a YouTube rabbit hole and spent many hours and redid my home networking to make it look nice and spent way too much money.
Oh, I didn't know you spent a bunch of money. You just said you redid things. I just thought you just moved cables around or whatnot.
No, it was also like buying a mini rack and a UPS and a NAS and a switch and yeah, and some network cables to make it all look nice and yeah. It looks really good, but
yeah, you spent a few dollars. There was a few years ago, you may recall, when I had my Wi-Fi project, because I was tired of my way too many smart devices that didn't have a reliable Wi-Fi connection, and that worked out really well for me since then. That was like a few years ago now.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so it's been nice to have a reliable Wi-Fi connection. So I wish you all the best. So what do you think if you woke up one morning? You went into work, and then all your computers have a little screen on them that start talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would just turn around and walk right out.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those not so productive days. How about that?
Yeah. I think about your current employer. They've got one or two computers. Can you imagine, right? Yeah. I mean, the bigger you are as a company, the bigger target you are.
I agree with that statement, but I also think that that's sort of the danger, right, in that situation, because smaller companies might think, hey, they're going after the big guys. I don't need to worry about this. But as we all know, everyone is a target.
Yeah, we're talking, of course, about ransomware. I think is that how it's pronounced? Ransomware. And we're, I thought with the upcoming release of my little book here. By the way, for those of you watching us or listening to us on Apple Podcasts or whatever, you can actually watch us on YouTube, and you get to see I've now got wall art with a picture of my upcoming book that I wrote with Dr. Mike Saylor, Learning Ransomware Response and Recovery. It's a lizard. I don't remember.
No, have you named the lizard?
Oh, if I give it, I've never named any of the other ones. Like, I've got the gharial over here, and I got the 7-banded armadillo. I don't have.
I think you should name them.
You think I should name them?
I think so.
I'm going to call this one Prasanna.
I knew you were going to do that, especially after you had named your Tesla.
Yeah, my Tesla is called It's Prasanna's Fault.
Yeah.
It is your fault that I have a Tesla, 100%. So, we're talking about ransomware, and I thought we'd do a little bit, again, celebrate the upcoming release of the book. We're gonna be talking about ransomware for quite a bit. So if ransomware bores you, maybe you should go watch some YouTube.
So I know that we're talking about ransomware in this episode, but I wonder how many people in IT don't know what the word ransomware is in the year 2026.
Like, just
do you
don't
think
know?
that there's actually anyone in IT who doesn't know what ransomware is?
Well, yeah, you know why? The Google Keyword Planner, which I use to plan my episodes, what do you suppose the average monthly search for what is ransomware?
Oh, I'm going to guess it's like per month, 10 million.
Oh, no, it's not that bad.
No, but
it's 10 to 100,000 times a month. But here's the thing. Here's my question. How much, like, outside of IT, who cares about ransomware?
Exactly.
So I think this is mostly IT and IT related people, and so we're talking to those people. So if you already know what ransomware is, and I don't know, go listen to one of our other episodes. Yeah, everyone learns a thing or two. Let's talk about, what is ransomware? And there are sort of two flavors, if you will, of a ransomware attack. And I think that the second one is becoming much more common, right?
Interesting. So I'll talk the first one because I'm not sure what the second one is you're referring to. But traditionally...
Okay. Yeah, talk about a traditional ransomware attack.
Yeah. A traditional ransomware attack is where someone gains access to your systems. They might encrypt your data, and then they ask for a ransom, right? Usually Bitcoin, in order to provide you back the key to unlock your data. And then they got smarter because people were like, hey, I don't need to pay the ransom. Let me just restore from backups. And so then they added an additional extortion mechanism where they would exfiltrate some of your sensitive data, emails, etc., and then say, okay, if you don't pay us the ransom, that's fine if you could restore your environment, but we're then going to release all this data about your company that you may not want out in public, and therefore you really, really, really should pay us a ransom.
And you said you didn't know what the other kind of attack was.
Were they both the second?
No, the first one, you did the first and the second. See, you don't need me. I don't even need to be here. So basically that second attack is what we now call a double extortion attack, right? The original was sort of the standard extortion, right? Either give it, basically it's where the word ransom came from, or ransomware, because you're ransoming the data. I've taken your data essentially, and by taking it, basically we have made your data inaccessible to you. We didn't have to take it in the sense of the way a traditional ransom would be, but we've essentially taken your data away from you by encrypting it, and you can have it back, right? For $1 million.
But I think, though, even that first case, even though the second one is more bulletproof from a threat actor perspective because they're more likely to be paid, I think, though, the first one is still common in consumer personal ransomware attacks. right? Where someone opens an email, they encrypt your laptop, and they're like, hey, pay me some Bitcoin. Because it's sort of a volume play, right? They're looking to hit as many systems as possible, hoping someone pays out. They don't really need to exfiltrate the data because what are they going to find on your laptop? Your home pictures and stuff like that, right?
Well,
So,
home pictures?
yeah.
Seriously, like, yes, there are some data. There is, technically, there are data, but I'd never say it that way.
Yeah.
There is data on many people's home devices that they would not want out there, right?
Sure. But then to filter that all out and to process it, right? If you have a million devices that you're attacking,
well,
right?
again, the spray and pray, right?
Yeah.
So basically, I'm going to say there's a significant percentage of people that have sensitive pictures and video on their personal devices that they would not want out to the world. I'm going to tell those people, please stop putting that stuff on your devices, right? It's in today's world, that is, I'm not blaming the victim. I'm just stating a fact that if that data is accessible in iCloud or
Wherever,
or something like that, right? Google Photos, etc. It is possible that it will get
leaked,
taken and then leaked. And I mean, look at all of the famous people that have had their basically nude photos leaked, right?
And I think this is a good segue or analogy into that small business case we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Where an average home user might think, oh, I'm not a celebrity, I don't need to worry about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and again, think about, so it's not just, I love using the phrase 11 herbs and spices, right? Which is from KFC. For those of you that don't know, that's it's a U.S. thing, but they used to always talk about that was their secret, their secret sauce, right? It's not just like your secret sauce. You're thinking, well, I don't have 11 herbs and spices. I don't have some massive corporate secret that if it got out, my company would be over. I'm just an oil change guy, right? So the question is, is there anything on there that you would not want out? Not like I said, IP, but have you ever searched on anything that maybe you shouldn't have searched on a company computer, right? Yeah. Think about those kinds of things. Conversations, emails that you had where you talked about, let's just continue with the oil change guy, where you talked about how stupid all these people are that come in. And they're always coming in. They're supposed to do their oil at 5,000 miles, and they're coming in at 57,000 miles. How stupid. In fact, there was a guy named Steve, and you just,
Or you're joking about never actually changing someone's oil or replacing their filter and just pretending.
Right. Oh, that would be really worse, right? I can think there's a local oil change company. It's a bit of a non sequitur, but there was an oil change company here that I caught them talking my wife into a injector cleaning service every oil change. They were charging her. And by the time I was like, why are your oil changes so expensive? She goes, well, they said I needed the thing. And I'm like, oh. I was so angry. I let's just say I read them in a rat. So think about, anything your company might have done ever that would not look good in the local news. That's the kind of thing that would go out, emails between, and also emails that you might not know about. Right? There may be people at your company. I know that this is, it's going to surprise you, but not everybody at your company is what do you call it? A saint, right?
Yeah.
Think about that, right? That is what a modern ransomware attack is. And I will say that most of what we cover in the book is how to defend against a traditional ransomware attack. Because, by the way, a new ransomware attack of double extortion is still the old school of ransomware attack, right?
With a new spin.
With a new spin. You still need to be able to restore your data and get your data back. And then you will need to make a business decision as to whether or not this secret, whatever it is, whether it's, your company IP or
But
embarrassing information,
Yeah.
whether or not you want to allow that to go out.
yeah, and if I go back and think about like the double extortion one, right? One of the most famous ones that sticks in my mind is a Sony hack,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Where someone got in, they were in the system, they exfiltrated a bunch of emails where studio execs were mocking some of the actors and actresses,
right.
and that did not go over well.
No, it did not. I mean, they eventually recovered, and that's
Yeah.
what I want people to think about. It's going to be one of those things where you have to have a long-term, view, and you have to say, long-term, it's not good for us to pay the ransom, because all you're doing when you pay the ransom is to tell the people that you pay ransom, right?
Yep.
And you are absolutely, just like in the real ransom world, you are setting yourself up to be kidnapped again.
Yep. In fact, that's where a lot of these ransomware as a service people do, right? They still have that persistent connectivity into your environment, and they sell it to the next person who then uses that to then hack you. And you now, like you said, you have to pay the ransom again.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
And-
for a second there, I thought you were going to say that it's okay to continue writing emails like that and other things and never learning from your mistakes.
You should learn from your mistakes. I bet you Sony learned not to talk about their talent in the emails. I'm sure they still talk about their talent, talk about their talent. They just don't do it in email. Although I have to say, people continue to amaze me in terms of what they continue to talk about in email in today's world, given...
Or text.
Or text, text, right? Because well, anyway, but the thing is, to think about all that stuff could come out in an attack. And so there are things, and we're going to talk about in upcoming episodes. We are at our heart, we're still a backup and recovery focused podcast, but you, in a modern world, you need to be aware and to understand the threats that your backups have. And I don't know anyone that would argue with the following statement: ransomware is the number one threat to your backups, and the number one reason that you need your backups.
I was going to say Billy is the number one threat to your backups.
What?
The random person who might go and just like blow up your environment, but
Billy's.
Sorry, Billy.
Not to. Yeah, technically that could be my first name. You know that, right?
Yes.
The W.
But it's not.
But
it's interesting point you made, because if you look at, I'm just looking at the poster behind you, right? Your book, right? And it's really like ransomware response, right? Which I think everyone thinks about, but I think that key thing is the last piece, right? The recovery piece.
Yeah.
Right. Backup is crucial in recovering from ransomware.
Yeah, exactly. So the and this is the tack that this podcast and that book takes. There are a million books you can go buy on how to not get ransomware. Our book basically starts from what they call an assumed breach, a position, which means you're probably going to get ransomware. The odds of you as a company not getting any ransomware ever are virtually nil. So you need to be able to respond to that and to recover. And the position of the book is that you need to have these discussions now. You need to make the decisions now. What are we going to do when we get a double extortion attack, right? Think about the worst thing that your company has that you don't want getting out. What are we going to do when some Russian, company comes to us and says, we have this stuff. And what they do, by the way, is they post it on like a proof site, right? They call it a proof of life site, right? Just like, again, going back with the ransom concept, right? Here's the proof that we have your data. and then we can publish it anytime we want to.
Yeah.
What you need to make all these decisions up front, if you're going to be successful.
So as you were talking through this, sorry, I might have looked a little distracted, and I was.
You looked a little distracted.
Because when you were talking through that, so we live in California, right? You know the first thing that popped to mind?
What?
Earthquake preparedness, right?
Yeah.
Really, when you're talking about ransomware recovery, like everything you talked about, have a plan ahead of time, figure out what you're going to do, all the rest.
Right.
As kids, right, you did the exact same thing, right? You figured out, okay, if something happened, I'm going here. Here's my little bag for school that contains like non-perishable food in case I get stuck at school with water. Right here, the emergency contact numbers, everything else, because being prepared is half the battle.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. By the way, just a funny little thing. One of my technical editors, right, Gina, she said, the term assumed breach means a lot different for women. I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't make up the term. All right, it's just an industry term. Assume breach. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, yeah. So I think the point that we're making right now, and the point that the book makes, is that you need to adopt the tack that you're probably going to get it, or at least that the chances of you getting are significantly high. It's not the same when we go back to, again, to use your earthquake thing. If you live there are certain parts of the country where natural disasters almost don't get to you, right? Mm-hmm. The only thing generally you're worried about is like fires, right? You're not going to get floods. You're not going to get hurricanes. You're not going to get,
tornadoes,
actually,
earthquakes, tsunamis.
If you think about the country, our country, I don't know about other countries, but if you think about the country, you pick your poison, right? Do you want hurricanes and tsunamis? Do you want tornadoes? Do you want earthquakes? Do you want massive forest fires? My point was that depending on, there are parts where you can pick where natural disasters don't really go after you. I'm thinking like south, like not east, like somewhere.
Do you remember the derecho though?
Below the south. I remember the derecho. Maybe there's nowhere you could go, but your odds are lower. My point is, there's nowhere you can go to lower the odds of a ransomware attack, right? Yeah. And that's, if you learn nothing from this episode, it's that the odds, and we go into the stats in the book, the odds of you getting a ransomware attack it's something like 80%, in terms of, especially when you look at over time, right? Over time, the odds of you getting a ransomware attack are essentially 100%, right?
Yeah.
And so the question is, there are a bunch of things that you could do in advance, to minimize, at least reduce the number of attacks that you get. There are, like the book does start out with, and we're going to cover that in the podcast. The book does start out with, here are some things that if you're not doing them, well, you're just, you're that person that never changes their oil. You've got to do some things, and it will stop roughly 90% of the attacks. When you look at so many of the stories that we've read, and they're like, oh, and they had a bad password and they didn't have MFA, and you're like, this kills me, right?
Or unpatched system.
Unpatched systems, all that stuff, right? So there are some things you can do to significantly reduce the frequency of a successful attack. But there are also some things that you need to do in advance to prepare to be able to respond, right? One of them is obviously backup and recovery, right? Mm-hmm. Having a solid backup and recovery system that uses immutable storage, right? We talk about that a lot. We talked about it in the last few episodes. And then another, I really believe strongly, and this is, this will sound like I'm shilling for Mike, but I believe strongly in having a cybersecurity service provider, right? Yeah. Having somebody that this is what they do, right? Look at, even if they're just like doing a regular checkup on what it is that you're doing, but they can also provide SIM SOAR tools and XDR tools where they have like a volume discount, right?
Yeah.
And then they could potentially put in that, and then you get, and they can, more importantly, because what matters more than the product you pick is how it gets configured, and they'll know how to do that, right? Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, save those for later. Come on, Curtis.
Yeah. But buy my book. Anyway, it's available for pre-order now. I'm actually literally right now, I'm doing what's called the QC2, which is the quality control number 2. This is the final.
So do you have a date for our listeners?
It's going to be, I
Coming
think
out
the
in
official
Feb.
date is March, and we're on target for that. We have just
March 2026.
March 2026. Yeah. So if you're listening to this after then, it's already out. You should just go buy it. And there's a companion site for the book that will be live by the time the book is ready. It's currently not live. It's funny. I was using my French friend, as I like to call him, Claude, to review the text in the book, right? And I was like, hey, look for any typos, look for any, bad URLs or anything. And Claude was like, hey, that website that you're pointing people to, it doesn't exist yet. I'm like, yeah, I know. Trust me. I know. I will get that website up before the site goes live. So I've got like 1 month to get it up in there.
Yeah,
But,
you'll be fine.
Yeah. So I'm just going to double check, see if there's anything else I want to cover on this.
So for people who want to pick up the book in March,
Yeah.
how do they get it?
So right now, the one thing I can tell you is it's on Amazon.com, right?
Okay.
It's on Amazon.com and it's on O'Reilly.com. It's wherever you buy books, right? We'll have a link for it on the show website, backuprappup.com. We'll have a link for it there. And actually, if you buy it there, I'll probably get an extra few bucks. So, feel free to do that. All right. Anything else that we need to talk about with the...
Nope.
Yeah. So basically, I'm going to say ransomware is the number one threat to the stability of your data center and the business. And it's a business problem, not just a technological problem, right? It is a thing that could shut down your company, right? It will shut down your company, right? You look
And
at
it has in the past.
Yeah, you look at companies that have ceased to exist after ransomware attacks. You look at companies that are significantly hampered. I think the worst one that I can think of is actually not a company. It's Costa Rica. Costa Rica got attacked. The entire government got attacked, and they have a law that it's illegal for them to use taxpayer dollars to pay ransom, and so they didn't pay the ransom, and basically they never got their stuff back. So they had to rebuild essentially whatever I don't know if you say federal government, but essentially their version of the federal government. Like, imagine rebuilding the IRS from scratch, right? That's what they had to do, right? All right. Yeah.
So adding to that,
yeah.
I was thinking about, as you were saying, what is the most riskiest or costliest ransomware attack?
Yeah.
Jaguar Land Rover.
Yeah. Are they still
I think they're
recovering?
still recovering. I think it's $2.5 billion and counting.
So 3 cars. They're not the least expensive cars on the planet. I'll just say that.
Yeah, $2.5 billion, including all their suppliers and everything else that's been shut down.
Wow, that is just massive. And for most people listening to this, they're like, oh well, they're just such a big company. Just think about what you would do if literally any of your mission critical servers just stop working.
Yeah.
Right. You can't access orders. You can't access customers. You can't email your customers. Yeah. You want to let your customers know what's going on, but you don't even know who your customers are because your computers are locked.
It goes back to, I don't remember if you remember this, but remember the dentist office MSP that got hit with ransomware, and all the dentist's office got encrypted?
I do remember that. As I recall, it was a Dallas company.
Yeah. So what are you going to do if you're a dentist and you're like, I can't email my patients? The patient shows up and they're like, I would need a teeth clean. You're like, I don't know who you are. I don't have your records.
Yeah.
I can't enter you into my system. All the rest of that.
Yeah. It's not a good day. So just if you're not doing much for ransomware, it's time to at least look into it. Feel free to check out my book, and also, following episodes. Follow us, and tell a friend, tell a persona. That is a wrap. The Backup Wrap-Up is written, recorded, and produced by me, W. Curtis Preston. If you need backup or DR consulting, content generation, or expert witness work, check out backupcentral.com. You can also find links for my O'Reilly books on the same website. Remember, this is an independent podcast, and any opinions that you hear are those of the speaker and not necessarily an employer. Thanks for listening.